My name is Leigh Garcia, and I live in Kent, Ohio.
And you're all the way here to Madison today.
Yes.
How exciting.
Yeah.
Now, you're one of the artists who has work within the Caja exhibit, correct?
Yes.
Let's start with that very generic question. Who are some of your major influences as an artist?
Wow. So some of my major influences as an artist are actually up in the show right now. So Leopoldo Mendez, Diego Rivera, of course, Frida Kahlo, Siqueiros, Orozco. So a lot of the Mexican revolutionary printmakers. More contemporary would probably be Alison Saar. She's my number one favorite artist.
And what is it about Allison's work that resonates for you?
Well, Allison is a printmaker. She does a lot of relief processes, which are just beautiful works and a process I really enjoy. But she's also biracial or multiracial, which is, I identify as biracial, and so we connect. I see a lot of connections and influence in that.
You talked about being mixed blood, biracial. How does that influence your work?
Being biracial influences my work quite a bit.
Tell me how.
Yeah, so I started off, maybe in the past 5 years, I've been making a lot of work about undocumented immigration of Mexican people from Mexico to the United States, specifically in Texas. So my biracial identity is that I'm half white. So on my mom's side, I'm a 7th generation Texan of European descent. And then on my dad's side, I'm a 2nd generation Mexican American. So my grandparents were Mexican immigrants. And growing up, just seeing that very stark contrast of culture, race, identity, ethnicity is just something that's always been at the forefront of my mind. I've been making work about undocumented Mexican immigration, and then more recently, more about my biracial identity and what it means to be half white and be biracial in the midst of this conversation.
So what's the story behind the pieces that are on exhibit here?
So Vigilantes is a screen print in the exhibition, and something I learned recently is that contemporary Border Patrol agents have adopted this practice of making these tire contraptions. So they take a bunch of tires and they tie them together along a piece of wood, and then they drag that with their truck, their Border Patrol truck, across the Mexico-US border wall. Or I should say along the border wall. And essentially what that does is it combs the sand, making it easier to find footprints of undocumented immigrants. And this isn't something that the Border Patrol agency has put into effect as an agency. It's something that individual Border Patrol agents have come up with. They spend their own time making these things, their own money and resources. So this vigilante mentality of going out of their way to track down undocumented people is extremely disturbing to me. And so Vigilantes, in that piece, I talk about that, and in sort of the sand that's been combed in my print, there are soldaderas, so women of the Mexican Revolution. I have pre-Columbian indigenous people, and then also vaqueros, like Mexican cowboys.
Sure.
So yeah, just thinking about like how my indigenous or my ancestors in Mexico would feel about these contemporary Border Patrol practices.
Sure. Now, I heard in another interview that one of your professors was Jim Escalante at UW-Madison. He's part of the MMoCA team here. Also, tell me about your interactions with Jim as your art advisor and supporter.
So it's funny because I never actually took a formal class with Jim, but I consider him to be one of my stronger mentors. And I think it's because we had more of like a personal relationship that we connected with, and I just, he is also Mexican and American, and, well, actually, I think he's just Mexican. He was born in Mexico. But anyway.
He's mixed.
Yeah, and that too, exactly. So Jim and I just, we relate a lot on cultural and ethnic and racial identity ways, so we've just had a lot of sort of, laid back conversations about that. And I really admire the way that he has navigated his identity through his artwork. And we also went to the same undergrad at University of North Texas.
Oh my, look at that.
And we're both Texans.
You're twins.
We have a lot in common. Yeah.
You're
we
twins.
look the exact same.
Yeah.
So.
I don't want to end on a negative note, but let me hear about some of the struggles as a Latina artist or a Mexicana, Chicana. Depending on who's in the audience, we define ourselves differently. But as a woman, tell me about some of the challenges and how you overcame them.
It's such a hard question because I think it's something I'm still going through right now. So it's hard to sort of verbalize something that's still kind of in the process of. But I can think of a lot of, I guess I'll say as a Latina artist, it's hard because I didn't have a lot of mentors that were Latinas or even women of color, BIPOC women at all, period. So just not seeing that representation in the classroom, but also in galleries, art museums, and historical art conversations is really hard. And it kind of makes you question sometimes if you belong in this space and in this conversation. As a Latina educator, it's hard, to gain respect sometimes from students that are maybe white men. I'm also really petite. I think, physical size has a lot to do with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And more specifically, as a biracial Latina, it's hard for me because I never feel quite Latina enough. I don't speak Spanish. I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm second generation Mexican American. So I'm close to the immigration, but not super close.
Mm-hmm.
And I do get microaggressions from other Latinas, actually, about that. And then at the same time, I don't feel white because I'm not white. I don't look white. I don't feel white. My experiences are not. I've obviously, as most BIPOC people have, I've experienced racism throughout my life. So just never feeling fully white or fully Latina. And so I'm really trying to, and my sister, who's a mental health counselor, has been helping me a lot to kind of process my biracial identity and feel confident in that, in being biracial, and that's enough, and I don't have to fit a category.
Exactly. You're your own category, aren't you?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're trailblazing, you're cutting new cloth,
Yeah.
and yes, you're your own identity.
Yeah. And the multiracial, biracial population is exploding.
Exactly.
I mean, the 2020 census, we grew by like 287%, I think. So it's only going to become a more normal conversation.
Absolutely.